A very good morning to all the participants and also the audience that we have here on this session, in this first session on for the seminar. I welcome you all. I thank the organizers for having me here to chair the session. I'm indeed grateful to the organizers. And I would especially thank Dr. Shelja, who has been considerate enough to propose my name to be the chairperson for this seminar. And I believe the participants, there are 4 participants, the 4 papers that are to be presented in this session. And I believe all the presenters know their time slot, that is 8 to 10 minutes will be given to you, each one of you to present. And I request all 4 of you to adhere to the time limits so that we can conclude this session within the stipulated time slot of 1 hour. So we have 4 presenters. So they will be presenting their papers in this order. Professor B.B. Venkatesh. Then we have Dr. Basundara Roy and Dr. Divya P. and Ajutha R. I believe all the 4 participants are here. So I just checked that Professor B.B. Venkatesh is here in the list. And I also see that he has joined. So, and he is, he's a professor in electronics, and the title of his paper is Survival of the Fittest Civilization. So without much ado, I would invite Professor Reshav to make his presentation. Over to you, sir. So kindly unmute yourself. You have to unmute your mic. We're not able to hear you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. So.
Thank you very much, Ms. Vasundhara Roy. Well, this is a paper presented by, of course, Professor B.B. Venkatesh. I work in IFM College. That's in Electronic City. The sub-theme is religious culture. And the title is Survival of the Fittest Civilization. We have heard of the phrase survival of the fittest, but I'm connecting it to the concept of civilization. As the sub-theme is religious culture, which I have taken up, I just would want to understand the word culture. The dictionary defines culture as the arts and other manifestations of human intellectual achievement regarded collectively, and the ideas, customs, and social behavior of a particular people or society. This indicates that culture has a lot to do with the arts, manifestations, ideas, customs, social behavior of people, irrespective of their individual or group intelligence. This is something which is dividable, inseparable. This is something which is inseparable. And in this context, religion is also something which comes to us from birth and becomes inseparable. If our civilization, that's Indus Valley civilization, is the only one out of the 42 civilizations on this planet from time immemorial, it has to survive in its original shape and in place without any breakages. It's only because of its religious culture, because of its culture and because of its religion. So put together, it is religious culture. Let's discuss how exactly this would happen. This would have happened. Any civilization, to survive, it has to take care of its basic needs. The basic needs, of course, is roti, kapda, makan. It has not changed. It has not changed much since beginning. Of course, kapda would have slightly changed because of our exposures, our invasions, our interests, all those things. But roti, makan would remain the same. So in this context, how did we take care of ourselves, of our food and our safety, security aspects from the beginning of its from its inception as a community, as a civilization. The basic point which I see is, if a particular generation, when its prime age, if it takes care of its previous generation, that is the physically or mentally weak parents, and the next generation, the upcoming generation, which is once again physically and mentally still, I shouldn't call weak, because today's youngsters are very strong. I'm talking about the very tender age. So it is basically a physically and mentally weak section of the society. That's the children, that's the kids. If this generation takes care of these two generations, which was just one generation before and one generation next, probably the cycle keeps on going ahead. But in what conditions is the question? But in what conditions? The condition is very natural, very normal. When I say natural, I'm talking about the climate. Climatic conditions itself was a challenge at that point of time, as per civilization is concerned. Climatic conditions, climatic variations, all these things would have been would have played a very important aspect in destroying the civilization. Apart from these climatic conditions, which is external, one more aspect, that is the animals, birds, and the plants, the environment in which we were living. The wild animals, poisonous reptiles, microorganisms, viruses. 4 or 5 years ago, if I had talked about viruses killing us, we would have laughed at it. But today, after this pandemic, we would definitely appreciate the point that every single virus would have played its role in trying to destroy the other race, that's one of them would be human race. So all those things would have happened, and still we have survived. It would have been a day-to-day adventure for our civilization to survive. When this is the case, we look back at the fact that we, the Indus Valley civilization, is the only one which has survived in the original form without any breakages in time and place. How did we do this? Okay, and if we have done this, there is one important aspect which today's world celebrates using it, that is best practices. What all the best practices we would have followed as a civilization since its beginning? Let's go with the modern world, which has proved beyond a doubt that the best practices are the ones which help us give away our best as a company, as an institution, as a society, as a nation, as a global community. It would be with less effort that we would be able to give our best if we follow the best practices. We do have hundreds of examples to prove that best practices would help people in progressing, winning, developing, and excelling. We are talking about the ancient people who didn't have the tasks of the modern man of progressing, winning, developing, or excelling. They just had to survive on a day-to-day basis. They just had to survive on a day-to-day basis. So let's make an attempt to understand what we did as a community to handle this task of survival. As it's quite clear, there are different aspects for any civilization to survive. First of all, it is health. Health with respect to the forces of nature, climate, air, water, fire, earth, and space. Air, it's not in rocket science that oxygen plays an important and vital role in the life of human beings. It's not in rocket science. Everybody knows it. In fact, after this pandemic, we have realized it. On the other hand, there are few plants and trees which are a part of our lives. They are basil. Basil is tulsi. People tree. People tree. In our language, we call it as aralimara and neem. So these are the three plants and trees, of course. Plant and trees, of course, play a very important role, and they are close to our life. All these three belong to a category of plant kingdom which exhale oxygen for 24/7. There are 10 plants, of course. There are 10 plants which exhale oxygen 24/7 out of the millions and millions of trees, plants, herbs, and shrubs. They are areca palm, neem tree, snake plant, aloe vera, gerbera, Christmas cactus, Rama tulsi, people tree, orchid, and money plant. So these are the 10 plants which exhale oxygen 24/7. On the other hand, all the other plants exhale oxygen only during daytime under the sunlight. With the help of the sunlight, they exhale oxygen and exhale carbon dioxide at nighttime. But these are few plants which exhale oxygen 24/7. In this context, there are few plants which are close to our heart, and 3 major are from this category. Why did we put them here? That is to safeguard our own interests in getting oxygen. If this is the culture part of it, there is an aspect of religion in it. The concept of religion is we made these plants sacred. We connected these plants to gods and goddesses so that at any point of time, we don't cut these plants and trees. We don't cut down these plants and trees. And if we are doing it, we have to follow a long process. Instead of that, better we leave it. So at any point of time, out of ignorance or arrogance, if human beings plan to cut down these trees, there will be one more obstacle, that they are sacred. So this is what I call it as religious culture. Secondly, food. Food is another vital aspect in the lives of people. It's a combination of vitamins, proteins, minerals, carbohydrates, fat in a particular proportion. The Western science boasts the research in each and every aspect of it, and it calls it as dietetics and all those things. It takes over. But the original wealth of knowledge still stays with us because we are using the same items which we used much earlier as food. Leave alone the food. Even the concept of not eating food has to be maintained in a particular proportion. If you have to go with food, we have to go with a lot of things. So many verticals we need to work upon. So what I work upon now, because of this 10 minutes of time limit, I'm working on the aspect of non-eating. That is upavasa, fasting. Recently, in 2016, October 3rd, in Physiology or for Medicine, Mr. Yoshinori Osumi from Japan, a scientist from Japan, got a Nobel Prize for discoveries of the mechanism for autophagy. That is, effects of fasting. What happens, what positive effects do happen if we fast at a particular interval of 15 days or 1 month. And he talks about autophagy. That's nothing but our Ekadashi Upavasa. And this was one thing which got a Nobel Prize for him. So this is such a basic thing in our culture. And added part is the religious aspect of it. So Ekadashi is one important sacred day. On that day, we should not eat, etc., etc. So this, I call it as religious culture. And the very use of pan, what we use for digestive purpose. We eat a particular combination of certain things after food, which helps for digestion. Raw food, of course, and the spices. The importance of spices is so immeasurable. This spice itself became a huge setback to us as the British came to India only to trade these spices, and rest is history. If this is about food and health, I would want to talk about yoga. Yoga is one another aspect of our civilization. And in fact, yoga, I'm tempted to share one incident which happened some 12 years ago. I was working in one of the institutions in, of course, Bangalore, and there I had made a habit of, I was the NSS program officer, had made a habit of visiting a orphanage along with my students every year. So it was our routine. So more than 8 to 10 years we were visiting, and we used to collect the stationery items, some sweets, some chocolates, these, that, everything. And we used to, from the whole college, and we, the 100 students, 100 or 50 students, I think. Yeah, it was half unit, 50 students. So we used to go travel all the way and reach a particular orphanage, and we used to celebrate a day with them, and we used to come back. We used to play with them, we used to laugh with them, we used to cry with them, we used to have food with them, and we used to make that day a memorable day for those kids who were in the orphanage, and we used to come back. Okay. At this point of time, all of a sudden, the government decided that one particular day should be celebrated as International Yoga Day, June 21st. We wanted to celebrate in a very special manner, and the first thought which came to my mind was, let's go to this orphanage, okay, and celebrate International Yoga Day. And then I went to that place. I took permissions from the authorities, and I went to that place. And the moment I entered there, the lady who was actually the caretaker. So she was so happy to receive me. And then she made me comfortable. She made me offered a seat and offered a cup of tea, I think. And then after all that, she started talking. Yes, sir. After a long time, you have come. In between, you have come. Not after a long time. In between, you have come. Normally, you come in the month of December. All of a sudden, you have come in the month of June. Tell me, sir, there should be something interesting. And she opened her eyes and ears, and she was ready to listen. I said, ma'am, this is one important program we are planning. And the first choice which I gave was this particular thing. That is, I want to celebrate this day with this orphanage. And here we are. And the occasion is International Yoga Day. The moment I said this, there was a change of expression on her face. Instant the reply came, sir, we belong to a particular religion, and we are not supposed to practice yoga. Thank you very much. She got up and went away. I was left shocked. I kept on wondering about the answer which she gave as I walked back. Till then, believe me, till then, I never felt yoga was something to do with our religion. Yoga was something to do with our religion. It was a surprise, a shock for me, that I realized that yoga has something to do with our religion. And then I pondered over it, and then all the things came in place. This is what I call it as religious culture. If yoga belongs to a particular religion, then it has been strategically placed. This is the point which I am stressing here, as this is a conference where we discuss religious culture. Now, coming to the aspects of yoga itself. Let's compare ourselves to the Western world. In America, according to a particular article which has been mentioned in my paper, okay, a particular article, link has been given there in my paper, https -- something. It says about 50 to 70 million Americans are suffering from sleep disorders or deprivation. And a huge amount of medicine has been manufactured and used in the United States of America to tackle this issue. Okay. It's almost equivalent to the medicine which is created for all other ailments put together. Why the sleeplessness? For the two people of America. If it's for some poor country, okay. This affluent country, why? The answer is very clear. It is stress. This concept called stress was never heard by us, by we common people. It was never heard some 2 to 3 decades ago. We did not hear this word. It was a new thing which came to our country. Okay. And if you go to any doctor of any kind, of any country, English medicine, Western medicine, Indian medicine, whatever, the remedy for stress is unquestionably, it is yoga. You ask anybody, they say it is yoga. Yoga is the solution. Yoga is the solution for stress. The point which I'm arriving at is, yoga is a remedy yoga, when it was invented or discovered, whatever technical word we may use it, yeah, yoga was found 5,000 years ago, and it was a remedy for the problems which humanity happens to face after 5,000 years ago. On that day, if you look at it, yoga was found as a solution, as a remedy, as a precaution for the problems of that day, and also the problems of modern man. What did they even have in mind about modern man? They did not even think about modern time at that point of time, but this was placed in such a way that it would take care not only the health of those individuals of that day, but the health of the family, the health of the society, the community, and the whole civilization. 5,000 years before, a remedy came, and today the problems are coming, the ailments are coming. Okay, so that is the importance of yoga. And in our aspect, in our civilization, there is one another aspect which says that the focus of an individual should be from self to the society. For that, Bhagavad Gita, we have one famous quote which says that to save a family, abandon a man. To save a village, abandon a family. To save a country, abandon a village. To save a soul, abandon the earth. Anyway, so the first three lines: to save the family, abandon a man. To save the village, abandon a family. To save the country, abandon a village, says that from self, man should look at the community. Look at the community. Each one of us, if we take care of the community will survive. So on this grounds, this is what is aspect of culture and the aspect of civilization. As yesterday's one of the resource persons, Miss Gul Erkol Bayer, one of the resource persons of this conference, was talking about festivals. Festivals are the perfect example of community living. So these festivals, which are a strong part of our culture, are a link which connects the community with God. And this is what I call religious culture. We have a system in our culture which is embedded in the hearts of our people. The emotion which is attached to this reflective in all forms, namely our films. A survey says that 50% of Indian movies are based on this particular system, which we followed as a civilization. And 80% of them are successful. What is that system we are talking about? We are talking about the family system. The family system. It's a culture. In this family system, mother is important, father is important, correct? Along with that, a teacher is important. So they made it to safeguard this culture. They placed religion upon it by saying Matru Devo Bhava. Connect them to God. Matru Devo Bhava, Pitra Devo Bhava, Acharya Devo Bhava. These are the tenets to be followed. With this, they are addressing the relationship between parents and kids on one hand, and teachers and students on the other. These people, father, mother, and teacher, who are responsible for your personal, social, intellectual growth, are culturally called as gods. And that's what I call as religious culture. There are a lot of values to be imbibed from Ramayana and Mahabharata. All of them connect human beings to God, because all these people, the characters in these epics, our Indian epics, so they lived like human beings, and finally they were called as gods. So that means there's a connection between human being and God. And if we people live lives like that, we also can become God. This is the way the culture has been imbibed with religion, and it's called, and that's what I call it as religious culture. Apart from these things, these epics, we have Vedas, Upanishads, wide range of possibilities of things beyond God also. So these cultural aspects have stood as a lighthouse for travelers in the dark sea of life from time immemorial. They have been helping people to reach their respective goals. Do we need a better system than this to take care of ourselves as a civilization? Out of all the 42 known civilizations on this earth, if ours is the only one to remain in its original form without any breakages of time and space, it's only because of these cultural aspects which are blended with religion, which I call religious culture, and it stands as a testimony to the term used by Herbert Spencer, survival of the fittest civilization. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for a very powerful presentation, indeed, and very impressive how you've correlated civilization with religious culture. In fact, I truly believe in our religion, and it has been called Sanatan Dharam, not Sanatan Dharam ki upadhi di hai. So that is a testimony about our our culture, which has withstood so many centuries, and I mean so many years. And truly what you have talked about is very much evident, especially after this COVID thing that we went through, the world went through. And in fact, I would just like to share one anecdote here. My brother's in the US, and he has been vaccinated with mRNA vaccine, and we've been vaccinated with Covishield and Covaxin. And he was telling me that the Indians got a better vaccine, and you are better immune to withstanding such kind of pandemics and all that. So that's one thing. And of course, what you talked about ethnobotany and how you related it to religion, and how we made our plants sacred, it all talks about how we were so attached to this entire biosphere, this universe. And that is what has that is what is all about our success story as a civilization. And but the sad reality of today is that we need an endorsement from the West. The Nobel Prizes being given to people who are sharing knowledge which was ours, as their own. So that's the sad reality. But your presentation was indeed it encompassed a lot of things. You talked about the continuity, how the continuities has been there because of our best practices in terms of our food, the Pak Shastra that you talked about, the elaborate processing that we go through, and the kind of food that we are still continuing to eat. Indeed, it is really, really amazing that our religious culture is a testimony for us, the survival of our civilization for so many decades, so many years, thousands of years. So salute to our culture, our religious culture, and very well presented, sir. Really impressed with your presentation. Thank you so much. It was really enlightening. Any questions from the participants? I think anybody would like to ask anything. I guess, sir, your presentation said a lot, so we are indeed spellbound by it. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. So after Professor B.B. Venkatesh's presentation, we have Dr. Basundhara Roy. I hope she is here with us. Dr.
Yes.
Basundhara Roy?
I'm here.
Yeah. She's an assistant professor from the Department of English, Kareem City College, Jamshedpur, Jharkhand. The title of her presentation is Gender and Performance in Nizam Ezekiel's Night of the Scorpion, a Cultural Studies Approach. Over to you, Dr. Basundhara Roy.
Thank you, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible, and your presentation is also visible.
Thank you so much. So this is a paper on gender and performance in Nazim Ezekiel's Night of the Scorpion, a cultural studies approach. Now, the idea is that this particular poem, which has been there, it appears even in school children's anthologies, and it is taught right up to masters. The interpretation of this poem has remained more or less fixed as far as the cultural psyche is concerned. And therefore, this is an attempt to read the poem in a fresh light as per the various approaches offered by the Cultural Studies Project. I first read, this is a quotation from Leela Gandhi, who talks about the poem. And she says that I first read Nazim Ezekiel's Night of the Scorpion at an indeterminate school-going age, on a day given over to domestic science tests. The poem was squeezed into an undistinguishable English elective anthology where it sat uneasily alongside random excerpts from James Thurber, Rudyard Kipling, R.K. Narayan, Winston Churchill. Encountered in a bustling corner of the Presentation Convent Home Studies Laboratory, Ezekiel did not exactly make an impression. Filtered through a morass of feminine instruction on the reheating of apple pie for exhaustive executive husbands, or on the highly efficient removal of wasp stings using a piece of plastic only, Night of a Scorpion readily blurred in my mind into the baffling literature of home remedies. In subsequent years, its influence translated into the wisdom that sacks of rice had to be handled with extreme caution in the monsoon months, that the pain from a scorpion sting is felt in the whole body, causing acute spasms and occasional fever. And last but not the least, that under no circumstances must the affected area be burnt following application of paraffin oil. Now, largely one reason for the fact that the interpretation of the poem has been fixed was that Ezekiel himself, at the University of North London for a poetry reading session on 9th October 1989, mentioned that the poem was based on an autobiographical event that occurred when he was about 12 years old. His mother, indeed, was stung by a scorpion, and the poem emerged from his memory of his parents' response to this particular crisis. For most critics, therefore, the last lines of the poem have remained a strong signal of the emotion of maternal devotion. Even the well-known critic John Thiem says that The Night of the Scorpion can be read as a precisely realized verse account of a very specific personal experience. It is a dramatization of an encounter between secular Indian rationalism and pre-modern Hindu faith. It provides a powerful depiction of conflicting belief systems coming into a dialogue during a moment of family crisis. With his father's rationalism being influenced by the simple piety of the Hindu villagers, who provide a chorus of commentary on the consequences of a scorpion sting. Nazim Ezekiel's son, Elkanah Ezekiel, says that he was in the 10th standard at St. Mary's School, Bombay, when his father was invited to address a talk. And because his father had not brought any other poem with him, somebody offered him, this textbook with The Night of the Scorpion, and he read it out from there. So basically, this is a poem whose interpretation in the classroom is largely fixed, and it has remained fixed over the years. However, as I attempt to read this poem from a different perspective, I would offer the audience, this particular poem, which appears in the Gatha Saptashati, which is, 700 verses in the Gatha form, and is one of the oldest extant anthologies of poetry from the Indian subcontinent. This is largely a woman's book in that the verses are a compendium of women's gestures, utterances, silences, and this particular poem has also, a scorpion in it. So I'll just read it out. A scorpion has bitten her, they cried. And as she thrashed about, her shrewd friends in her husband's presence rushed her to her physician lover. In her 2008 book, Animals as Disguised Symbols in Renaissance Art, Simona Cohen tries to trace the history of the scorpion as a symbol and its various representations in various cultures. Cohen argues that the earliest depictions of the scorpion highlight its ambivalent nature as a unifying signifier of life and death, generation and corruption, the overt and the covert, sacred and profane, licit and illicit, and the gifts of life as well as the lurking dangers that render it so precarious. If you look at astrological traditions, then the scorpion signifies the 8th zodiac constellation, the Scorpio, which came to be primarily associated with the human genitalia. Within the context of South Asia, Cohen refers to the earliest surviving text on Indian astrology, which is the Yavana Jataka, which is a Sanskrit translation of an ancient Greek text in horoscopy. And this text defines the zodiac Scorpio as having the shape of the scorpion in its whole. And it is said to be in the region of the penis and the anus of the Lord. Even, in the depiction of the zodiac man, you find that the scorpion is depicted in the human genitalia. Now, when you look at the scorpion as a cultural image, and particularly when I look at the scorpion as a symbol, as a cultural symbol, particularly in Bollywood songs, we find that the scorpion offers a very potent symbol for depicting human desire and specifically female desire. In a very early song from, Madhumati, where you have this, there is a host of scorpion songs, in Bollywood, there's a host of scorpion songs. So you have this Madhumati, you have it in Chamatkar, you have it in Kaher, you have in, Ila Arun's well-known Bichura. And then there are various folk traditions which also highlight the significance of the scorpion as a cultural symbol of female desire. So there are just, these are videos that I think I would rather not play because we do not have a lot of time. So this is the, song from Madhumati, where you have the idea of the scorpion, which bites the heroine of the song. And then again, you have it in Chamatkar, the well-known Shah Rukh Urmila train sequence where, they're trying to find a scorpion. Again, you have this Mujhe Bichu Lad Gaya, another well-known song. Now, the idea that I have put forward these songs is that I attempt to read Night of the Scorpion as a poem in the light of these scorpion songs that appear plentifully in Bollywood. So this particular form is the Nautanki, which is very popular as a dance drama in northern India. And the Nautanki also, takes off from the idea of the scorpion as disturbing in the context of female eroticism and desire. So here is my reading of the poem, and I have highlighted particular aspects, in the different colors that I intend to explain. So the poem says that I remember the night my mother was stung by a scorpion. 10 hours of steady rain had driven him to crawl beneath a sack of rice. Parting with his poison, a flash of diabolic tail in the dark room, he risked the rain again. Now, this repetitive nature, the repetitive image of the night and the repetitive image, of the scorpion not being found, of the scorpion the inability to locate the scorpion is very significant to the identification of this particular poem with the various Bollywood songs that, we have just had a glimpse through. Because in none of these songs would you actually find a real live scorpion. So the scorpion is always an elusive signifier. The scorpion only appears as a manifestation of a bite and as a manifestation, of the effect that it has on the victim. So you find that the peasants come like swarms of flies, they buzz the name of God 100 times, and there are shadows thrown on the mud-baked walls, giant scorpion shadows. However, the scorpion is not to be found. When you look at this entire stanza, I read it as being very performative. Performative in the same way that the Papi Bichua song of Madhumati is performative, where you have a number of, you have a large number of minor characters who surround the heroine who is supposed to be bitten by a scorpion. So the idea of juxtaposing gender and performance, for this particular paper comes from the reading of the peasants as a performative element within the text. So the peasants come, they click their tongues. So look at the performances that are being made. They are clicking their tongues. Their lanterns are throwing giant scorpion shadows on the mud-baked walls. And when you look at it, practically the peasants are not doing a thing. The peasants are merely, a part of the background, just as there are many dancers in the background. And the peasants form a chorus that talk about the scorpion bite, in terms of the in terms of the cycle of birth and rebirth, in terms of the cycle of karma. So may he sit still, they say, may the sins of your previous birth be burnt away tonight, they said, and may your suffering decrease the misfortune of your next birth. So this is the philosophical interpretation that has largely been, taken from this particular poem and brought into the classroom for an explanation of the poem. But then again, the lines that may the poison purify your flesh of desire and your spirit of ambition. And they sat around the floor with my mother in the center, the piece of understanding on each face. This can also be found in each of the Bollywood scorpion sequence dances that I have pointed out too, where the victim is placed at the center and the onlookers, form a circle around the victim. And the idea is that they are waiting for the spell to pass. But the spell is not exactly a kind of, it is not exactly a pathological spell. It is not exactly a malaise. It is rather, a manifestation of desire on the part of the female victim who stands at the center. So in his analysis of the scorpion motif in contemporary Asia, Jürgen Wasim Fremben elucidates how in the popular culture of Indo-Pakistan, for instance, the scorpion is used as a metaphor of pain, of carnal desire, and of lust, and in the more concrete way of coitus itself, thereby invoking the experience of orgasm as a sort of half-death or little death. In this cultural context, the scorpion sting, which in Urdu is known as the dunk or in Pashto is known as the lasha, serves as a paraphrase for the male genitalia. Within the South Asian performative tradition, the scorpion is thus culturally understood to be a phallic image. It both initiates and mediates erotic arousal that needs to be addressed, healed, and quelled. Not only does the scorpion sting become a metaphor for the female actor or dancer's fear and revulsion of the arachnid, but it also operates as an expression of female erotic pleasure that sneaks up and subsumes the women in their fire. In her article, Sinner Scorpions and Erotic Women, Interspecies Imaginaries in Indian Song and Dance Sequences, Rishika Maharishi argues that the scorpion is an embodiment of female sexuality and pleasure. She writes, transgressing familial, sexual, and urban, rural class and caste norms, the scorpion or the female narrative is about a crisis in an otherwise cohesive romantic fantasy that is best explained through an agonizing, unbearable, inexplicable, nonetheless highly desired experience of arousal. So, putting all these things in perspective, it is my intention to offer the interpretation that the poem can also be read, as a text where gender and culture are being performed through the image of a woman who is bitten by a scorpion and who can be read, therefore, as a woman who is performing the idea or the emotion of desire. Since this is also presented within a conjugal framework, therefore, we can read the poem as offering, an alternative to conjugality itself. So thank you so much. This was what I intended to bring before you. And if there are any questions, I will be glad to answer.
Thank you, Basundara Roy, for your presentation on this poem, which I believe each one of us must have read during our school days. And some of us might be teaching as well. And you rightly pointed out that it has a fixity of meaning when it is, taught to the students in the college and in the colleges and in the schools. And the perspective you have brought in through your paper is something which even it never occurred to me as well. And it's indeed interesting how you brought out the gender perspective and the performative aspect in your paper. You've thrown open a new light on the poem itself, and it is an interesting reading how you've correlated it to Bollywood and the folk literature and also the Nautanki and how the scorpion has such metamorphical and symbolic implications. Indeed, it was very interesting. Your paper was very, very interesting. I would also like to share one thing regarding the scorpion thing. Of late, somebody told me if you kill a scorpion, you amass a lot of wealth.
Oh my goodness.
It was something really bizarre. I was like, okay, this is, I was taken aback. I mean, this is also one of the things which are associated with these poisonous insects and reptilians like snake and all. So I just got thinking about that aspect as well. Probably somebody would write a paper on that as well. I mean, you
Thank
kill
you. Yes,
something.
that adds to my ideas, and I'll try to explore that
Yeah,
as well.
you do explore that because it was something somebody told me once a very long time back, and it just occurred to me right now. It was indeed very interesting. And also, you're bringing in that Gatha Shaptasati, where the mention of the similar thing is there, and it is related to women. It completely correlates with what is there in the poem, and also whatever is there in the Bollywood songs and the Nautankis and the folk songs. I wish you had played some folk song for us. That would have been made. I mean, the Bollywood songs, of course, we've all heard, but yeah, the folk and the songs would have been a, a good treat for us here.
Yeah,
Probably.
it is there on YouTube, and the song is when you listen to it, it's I mean, when it is enacted, it looks very vulgar, there where the woman is pretending to she says that she has been bitten by a scorpion, and one by one all the male members of the family are invited to treat her. So the father-in-law is invited to treat her, and the brother-in-law is invited to treat her, and the ultimate is nobody succeeds, and finally it is the husband who is called upon to treat her, and he succeeds in treating her. So the idea is the scorpion bite serves as a symbol, of an erotic desire rather than anything else, rather than as a genuine scorpion bite. So that was what I was trying to relate, to the Night of the Scorpion, which may sound bizarre, but then it would help to change the meaning. Change the way we have received the poem throughout.
Yes, truly, and very interesting paper. I congratulate you on this wonderful presentation, Vasundhara Roy. And next time when I teach this poem to my students, I'll definitely bring in this aspect. It was something new for me as well. Thank you.
Ma'am.
Thank you so much. Any questions from the audience? Anybody would like to add or make an observation regarding Vasundhara Roy's paper? I guess that'll be all. Thank you so much, Basundhara. It was a wonderful presentation. Thank you so much. So that was Basundhara Roy with her presentation on the poem Night of the Scorpion, a cultural studies approach. Now we have the third presenter, Dr. Divya P. I hope she's around.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So Dr. Divya P, she is from the Department of Higher Education, Kerala. And her presentation is on popular culture and Chetan Bhagat's The Three Mistakes of My Life. Over to you, Dr. Divya P.
Yes, ma'am. Is it visible, ma'am?
Yes, we can see your presentation and you're audible.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. The topic of my presentation is popular culture and Chetan Bhagat's novel, The Three Mistakes of My Life. Through the contemporary cultural world, we can shape our identities, express our desires, and fulfill our aspirations by representing the norms and conventions with a detailed understanding of any individual, the society, and the world somewhat or completely. The concept popular culture consists of various areas such as media, lifestyle, celebrity-oriented modern mythologies, online activities, and social networking. Obviously, such new concepts are profoundly associated with new social values, create role models, mold identity formation, consolidate dominant ideologies, and even challenges traditional hierarchies. Cricket is a term coined by E.D. Varghese that revolves around cricket, which excites and entertains a large segment of the population all over the world. In the past modern society, the cricket is a new genre of the best-selling Indian English fiction. In the novel, Chetan Bhagat delineates the life story of three friends, Govind, Ishan, and Omi, who established a sports equipment shop with an adamant interest and passion for cricket. The trio shows a common interest in cricket and find out unbelievable opposition and skillfulness of Ali, who is a poor, young, talented Muslim investor of Ahmedabad, on the same. The popular culture has not only become an emerging new genre of literary text in the 21st century, but also appeared to reflect new modalities of living. Of course, the narrative reflects young metropolitan character that are with ignited mind and working modern jobs in the corporate service sector. And the characters are struggling to preserve their identities in the spirit of urban modernity as young professionals in metropolitan spaces within and outside India. The narratives of popular literature highlight multinational food chains, including bar and pubs, cafe shops, bakery, pizza outlets, and so on, as icons of Indian global culture. In the novel, Chetan Bhagat sketches the plan of the protagonist to open a new outlet for their sporting goods shop, but the massive earthquake destroys their dreams and aspirations as well as the prospect of a new six-story mall. Noel sketches the unquenchable passions of three Indian youths who lived and existed near the down market area of the old city of Ahmedabad. Among the three friends, the protagonist and the narrator of the story is Govind Patel, who is the son of a widow and a good at studies, particularly a subject expert in mathematics. The second character is Ishan, who is the son of a telephone department employee and desert India cadet as well as frustrated cricketer. And the third character is Omi, and he's the son of a priest of Swami Bhakti temple and blindly follows Hindu rituals and beliefs. Govind is a bright, talented student who has exhaustive knowledge and expertise in teaching maths to school students and hopes to be a business magnate one day in Gujarat as well. The ambitious metro culture is described as the first mistake of his life, and he challenges the Hindu ethos of acceptance by making attempts to raise beyond the destination of life. Govind, Ish, and Omi start a small sporting goods business in the form of a small sports shop, which is provided by Omi's family near the temple courtyard under the name Team Cricket Shop that opens on April 2000. As an Indian cricketer, Ish offers his service to free coach the youngsters but about how to bowl and bat and ball. Gradually, their business grows and they add many more steps such as paints, notebooks, pencils, other school items, and so on. The surrounding of the business dramatically changes and finds new premises for the business at an upcoming mall at Navarinpura. But unfortunately, the hopes are dashed and destructed by the earthquake. Similarly, the spirit of urban modernity is significant in the novels of popular culture that functions as the sites of transitions and diversity in the formation of identities. The outlets of the shopping malls play a major role to caricature modern metropolitan space, which is prominent in the changing cultural scenario of the life of modern professions and middle class young generation. Obviously, these narratives emphasize the conflicts between the tradition and modernity as part of their identity crisis in the present social scenario of the 21st century. Govind becomes or blames of God and nature for the destruction of the business as well as life for such a cruel and unkind act. The soaring ambitions and unachieved targets of life of Govind in the metro culture are considered as the first mistake of life. The doctor advises depressed Govind to keep his hopes alive in entire life as he is a Gujarati, and he convinces his friends' advice to go back to the temple shop to try to build their aspirations and dreams over again. They start a new venture in the business, and meanwhile, Indian cricket team starts to take lucky youngsters to the game against rivals like Australia. Govind completed his second mistake by indulging his immature love and sexual alliance with his best friend's sister on her birthday by moving so closely on the terrace while celebrating her birthday with coffee and cake. And the story moves on, the readers realize the impact of the scene after Ishan comes to know about the sexual relationship of Govind and Vidya, and Ishan breaks off Govind's friendship, which takes longer time to set right. Of course, again, the third mistake is a complicated one, and it is associated with post-Gabran communal rights in Ahmedabad that is guided by Omi's Mama Bitu, who is a Hindu activist and works for a right-wing political party. Ishan adopts a young lad, Ali, who is very fond of cricket and hopes to make him a nation player, and even arranges a scholarship for him to train in Australian Cricket Academy. But Ali refuses to stay in Australia and comes back to England. The communal rights Godra happens earned a full bogey of cut sabers as well as Bittu Mama's young son Dheeraj is burned by Muslim hooligan. Chetan Bhagat, I conclude this topic. Chetan Bhagat delineates various ways of human life where victory and defeat as well as ups and downs are parts of our life. As human beings, we should never think of suicide and never think to end our life while tossing on the misfortunes and personal complexities. The sports and cricket are used as a metaphor of life, which shows the unending sequence of rise and falls of, ups and downs. In our life, we often lose our innings, but later we regain strength and repair the broken pieces of our aspirations and pursue our journey in life. The narrator Govind resurrects his life like a phoenix from the ashes of three mistakes, which are similar to the winning and loss of wickets in the cricket of Indian team. The impact of global culture and metro hierarchy of the 21st century as part of popular culture paved the way of destination in the life of the narrator Govind. Thank you, ma'am.
Well, thank you, Divya, for your presentation on the three mistakes of my life novel by Chetan Bhagat. Your novel talked about popular literature. So
Yes.
popular literature, I believe, is a product of en masse. That is
Yes.
what finds flavor and I would say favor with the
Yes.
large audience. I mean, it's popular among the people, the en masse, and it is designed for entertainment rather than to preach something, or it's not written as something called high literature, or as Arnold would put it, with a lot of high seriousness. So I would like you to answer a few queries which I have. Do you think
Yes.
that literature which is not popular might have become popular had it been written in the present times? Say, for that matter, Shakespeare has been regarded as canonical and judged as something which is read by the class, which comes under the category of classics. But had he written in the present time, would his literature have been considered as popular with the masses, or what is your take on that?
I think it is different from this present scenario because this genre of literary text in this 21st century, and there comes a modality, a new type of modality, a new type of living, new type of thinking we have. So these narratives or these characters, they have such aspirations. They are different from the traditional way of thinking, traditional way of aspects, and now it is different. And they have that ignited mind, and they have that working mentality. So it is entirely different from that previous era. So this we have multinational food chains, including we could see the bar and pubs, we could see the culture, different culture, cafe shops, we could see that bakeries and pizza outlets. These are the basic aspects, something related to this popular culture, and it is different from Shakespearean time.
Okay, thank you. And have you seen the movie Kai Poche that has been, based on this novel, The Three Mistakes of My Life?
No, ma'am, no, ma'am.
You must watch that movie as well.
Okay.
Okay, it was a nice presentation. Thank you so much, Divya.
Thank you,
We are
ma'am.
running short of time, so I would now not delve into more questioning. And any questions from the audience for Divya, you're most welcome. quick question would do. Anyone would like to ask anything? So we have the last presenter. The last presenter is Anjutha R. Is she here?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
Okay, Anjutha is an assistant professor of English from Aditya Institute of Management, Science and Research, Puducherry. The title of her presentation is Ecofeminism, an unstereotyped woman in Meghna Pant's Boys Don't Cry. So over to you, Anjutha.
Thank you, ma'am. Very good morning, everyone. My warm greetings to Dr. Sangeeta Madam and all the dignitaries present here. And I would like to welcome each one of you with a very, very short to my presentation. And I think we have exhausted all the time. So let me quickly read through some of the important slides of my research. So let me share my screen. So the title of my research is Cosmofeminism, the unstereotyped woman in Meghna Pants, Boys Don't Cry. So the methodology used in this research is adhering to the MLA 8th edition. The study is a qualitative analysis of women, marital culture, mental health, and domestic violence through the theoretical framework of cosmofeminism. So when it comes to culture, culture has different facets. It's a way of life, and culture varies in different countries. When it comes to a country like India, culture plays a very significant role. In Indian culture, marriage as an institution stereotypes the role of women, and oftentimes they are silenced and they are expected to be quiet. They are expected to accept all kinds of ill treatment subjected to them. And this paper seeks to study the analyze the stereotypical marriage system in India. It explores the problems faced by women, both mentally, physically, sometimes emotionally also, through this cage of fantasy called marriage. So for the study, the best-selling pop culture Indian author Meghna Pant's most recent fiction, Boys Don't Cry, which was published very recently in 2022, is taken. These non-canonical Indian writers are not given the limelight. That's precisely why I have chosen this novel. Things are changing now, but it has not completely ended. Like things are slowly changing, but I feel there is still some kind of ill treatment which is given to women. So talking about the author, Meghna Pant is an award-winning author, journalist, feminist, and speaker. And Boys Don't Cry is her eighth book. She's won several awards, including the Fawn South Asia Short Story Award. And she was shortlisted for Amazon Breakthrough Novel Award and was longlisted for prestigious Frank Corner International Award and Commonwealth Short Story Prize. She calls herself a prominent, proud feminist. She curates a monthly panel discussion on feminism and gender equality called Feminist Rani. She not only talks, sorry, she, okay. So she not only talks about the abuse of women but men as well. She's a domestic violence survivor and she speaks about it on various platforms. Her TEDx speech popularized the slogan "Stop the silence and stop the violence." And she has worked as a business news anchor for Times Now, NDTV, and many other news channels. So talking about the novel, Boys Don't Cry is a novel by Meghna Pant. It's a fiction based on the marital abuse in the life of the author. So it's an autobiographical fiction and it talks about the abusive marriage and trauma. The author tells the story of Menaka, who endured an abusive marriage in all sense, and what was thereafter is all about the story. So these are some of the words from the author. When we stifle the humanity of boys, we raise them to be inhuman men, abusive men. That's what has inspired the title of the book. We have to pay careful attention to the gender roles being prescribed to boys as we have to girls, because oftentimes men are asked not to cry, men are asked not to like pink color. And as Gloria Steinman said, it's not about biology but consciousness. So as I told, this is a story about the author. It's an autobiographical fiction. So it was a story of 15 years of her life. And she was into an abusive marriage for 7 long years, and it took almost 8 years for her to gather the courage to write, because oftentimes when she's about to write the story, she would often break down while writing the story. And so she had been into the abusive marriage for a long time, for nearly 7 years, thinking that her love will change her husband. But she was madly in love with a person called Sunit. She thought uh, she's finally going to get married to the love of her life. But then only after marriage, she gets to know the true colors of her husband. And she didn't want to divorce him because she was so in love with him. She convinced herself that things will change and her love will change her husband, but nothing has changed. So she thought that she wanted to write the story precisely because she wanted to save many women in the country. That's why she has written the story. So there was one particular incident which instigated her to finally take that action. So she was on a period, and then her husband didn't let her access her sanitary pads, which was in his room. So she says she could no longer deny that he was a barbarian, and this was a small incident, the history of many incidents. But that clarity, which had been many years in the making, finally came to her. It was as if a veil had been lifted, and she could no longer lie to herself. So she decided to come out of the abusive marriage. So the author says that after many years of confusion, breakup, and reconciliation, I left him. And she says that it was not easy. She faced many problems even after she broke with him. And then this it has made, because precisely he has made her very strong, that she could deal with anything life throws on her way. So she says that in India, when she grew up, women are taught to be givers. Because of that, we let men take too much from us. Even in matters of abuse, when a man hits a woman, he wounds her psychologically, emotionally, and physically as well. So, talking about gaslighting, Meghna Pant in an interview to First Post says that, let me read. You see, he told me that I deserved to be hit, that I'd asked for it. Like a rape victim, I felt helpless. I started getting nightmares of being murdered. He told me I didn't deserve to be loved, that I was a terrible person, dumb, useless, not worthy of happiness, and could do nothing right. This is important, I started believing the things he said to me. I stopped laughing. I stopped crying. For months, I cried. I'd walk on the streets weeping. I'd weep in front of strangers. My friends told me I looked miserable. I was. I'd gone from being a happy person to a terribly sad one. I didn't even want to live anymore. No person, especially a man, deserves to do that to you. So, she finally says that when choosing a partner, it's important to be careful, because you're going to spend the whole life with that person. So she says that before choosing a partner, we have to be very careful. We should not only know about that person and about their family as well, because she thinks love is something which is very important in our life. So, talking about the significance of the story, Meghna Pant was a very educated woman. She had one of the best careers in the world. She lived in the United States, but even though she had a good career, she had to face so much atrocities. So just imagine about an illiterate woman. So this is significant of the story, that all women, despite being from different cultures, despite being working and a non-working woman, face the same abuse. So the theoretical framework used in this research is cosmofeminism. The word cosmo means world. Feminism is equal rights for women. So cosmofeminism means the women of the world should be given equal rights and should be treated the same. And women across the globe should be united to fight for a common cause. And as I told earlier, albeit diversified, we should realize the fact that we belong to one community as a whole. So, cosmofeminism is a female solidarity across national borders. It's an international vision of women's solidarity, global sisterhood of women to get united to fight against the universal patriarchy. So, according to Ram, Rayleigh, and Stevens, What I shall term cosmopolitan feminism or cosmofeminism does not assume that all women are united under common experience of patriarchal oppression or gender identities. Instead, it makes room for unique views to bring to the table of feminist discourses. Cosmopolitan feminism is seen as a process-oriented framework in which all work together for the common good. So our society has set a lot of rules. They have established ground rules for everyone that men should work and earn, women should take care of the house, kids, their in-laws, husband, along with their careers as well. And they have said they've asked women to adjust, compromise, be forgiving in marriage. And this rule is only applicable for women. And regarding when it comes to the age for marriage, women are asked to marry at a particular age, but the same rules doesn't apply to men. Men are free to marry at any age. So Boys Don't Cry from by Meghna Pant will ask us to seriously ponder over these questions about society. So marriage as an institution in India, domestic abuse is something which is not taken very seriously. So many women suicide because of that, and so many lives are traumatized and lost. Today, it's important to talk about societal issues like domestic abuse. Marital abuse is something which is unspoken of, especially when it comes to countries like India, where patriarchal norms are ruling every aspect of life. Marriage becomes a key to abuse women psychologically, taunting her to act in a way which are pleasing the men. Marriage has become a contract for men to take liberty to suppress and control women. And the India Today 2018 report states India has the lowest divorce rate in India. This clearly indicates there is a lack of dissent culture in India. This is very important because we don't have the right to talk back, and there is no dissent. This lack of dissent culture in India is making India the lowest diverse rate countries in the world, especially pertaining to women, human rights, and the institution of marriage. So, Kerala High Court has stated marriage and divorce must be under the secular law, and that is a need of the hour. So, it's time has come to revamp the marriage law in our country. So, in this novel, there is a clear distinction between the treatment of women before and after marriage. So, before the marriage, women are treated very kindly, but after marriage, their true colors are they show their true colors. Women are subjugated, and when it comes to responsibilities of women, it also changes after marriage, and we should normalize the concept of divorce. And Meghna Pan says that divorce is not the worst case scenario in a bad marriage, but living with your own stupidity. So when it comes to cooking, household chores, women should work along. Women should work, and also she should take care of the household chores. She should cook for her in-laws. She should take care of her in-laws. And when it comes to marriage, women are merely treated as sex objects, and she should take care of her kids. She should give birth. And the concept of woman leaving the house, it's women who should leave the house, and men will not leave their house after marriage. And it kind of creates alienation, and she has a lot of nostalgia. And the concept of men controlling women and their in-laws taking the woman for granted, and women are expected to be good wives. And there is an incident where Menaka's husband asks her if she has cleaned the bathroom properly, because his husband comes and tells him that the bathroom is stinking. So you see, clearly the husbands are kind of acting according to their what their mother is telling, and the narrative stripping of women all her goodness. And there's the in-laws are taking power over the daughter-in-laws, and men always try to be good son rather than being a good husband. So Meghna Pan says that I didn't mind that I didn't have a husband despite being married. So this is something very traumatic. And when it comes to work, when women go to work, it kind of gives a positive outlook, because women feel kind of they don't feel lonely, and they kind of get empowered when they go to work. And the husbands are kind of stingy sometimes. In the story, when Menaka wants to buy a newspaper, her husband says no, and she kind of sacrifices everything. She wakes up early and reads through her neighbor's newspaper secretly. And women are being resilient throughout, because she has to deal the bipolar and abusive husbands, like Menaka does in the story. because in the essays, people have set an example that woman should be like this. And even when it comes to the basics of relationship like courtesy, decency, dignity, women are completely denied all these. In the story, Menaka is also denied all these. And why should woman alone has to sacrifice in a marriage? This is very important. And when it comes to happiness also, happiness after marriage is completely stripped off to women. And men don't help women in the household chores. And her father-in-law is always concerned only about dinner, making dinner. She always asks her to make dinner. He never bothers about her emotions. Even after a tiring day, he expects her to make the dinner. And so when she's cooking, men used to watch TV. They used to spend time lavishly, but she has to go to work and then she has to come back. She has to cook, take care of her in-laws. Sometimes she has to massage her in-laws' food, and meanwhile, men will be relaxing. So she says that a working adult had to cook for 3 non-working adults just because she's a woman. And the husband is also controlled by his family. And in turn, he tries to control his wife. So she's drained out emotionally, psychologically, and physically also. She works at home as well as at office. Her body had become so stiff. She felt like an iron rod had been put inside her body. So she cries in public. She undergoes a lot of humiliation. And all the daughter-in-law feels that death is something which is precious, and they feel that death is far more better when compared to living with these terrible people. So women are often target for rumors. When these men were abroad, they did their house chores, but then after marriage, they expect women to do all the house chores. And as I told earlier, their in-laws also kind of influence their son, and they gather up together and abuse the daughter-in-law. And there is a lack of loyalty of men. They also have illicit relationships, and they blame women for all their misfortunes. If he had an anger issue, it was because I provoked him. So Menaka's husband if he gets angry, he says that it's because of Menaka he got angry, and he also says that she kind of provoked him. And the building narratives, they kind of uh, there is a character assassination of the daughter-in-law. And as I told, there is no dissent for girls, there is no privacy, and there's verbal abuse, intolerance, gaslighting, and the women are literally treated like a servant. They're asked to go out late at night to buy vegetables, and they're constantly on a check. They are expected to call back immediately, and their in-laws tell them that they should give preference only to their call first. And there's clearly a lack of love, which Megna Pant tries to emphasize through the story, because she feels that love is something which is very important for any relationship, and without love, our life will be completely a wreck. So she says that what's the point of being cultured with uncultured people? So concluding it, through the analysis of the novel Boys Don't Cry with the theoretical framework of cosmofeminism, we find that the task of deepening and extending the reach of cosmopolitan feminism and using international human rights to challenge the gender dimensions of socioeconomic inequalities and abuses is necessary. So, women of the world should be united rather than divide themselves into different arenas and fight for a common cause. And cosmopolitan feminism offers a way of conceptualizing such projects from women's diverse perspectives in a globalizing era. So thank you.
Thank you, Anjuta. Your presentation on Meghna Pant's Men Don't Cry. And it was indeed a very heartrending kind of account that we read about Meghna's autobiography. And it's a sad reality that many women are going through such kind of domestic violence. They are withstanding all this in silence, and it takes a lot of courage to come out and write about it in the true sense, and bringing all your personal dirty linen into the public. But in the end, it is for her own good. And also, she's written such an autobiography in order to motivate women to come out of such kind of atmosphere where they're living in such exploitative situations. And of course, you talked about gaslighting, which is also a kind of a strategy, a trick that is being used by not just the men, even some of the women, like the mother-in-laws and the mother of the your husband, who keeps provoking you, using these psychological strategies where you start questioning your own sanity and your power of reasoning. So women need to establish their own identity. It is very, very important. And also, you talked about cosmofeminism and cosmopolitan feminism and transnational feminism. That is the backdrop of your research. And we need to, obviously, all women of this world need to connect in order to share their knowledge gains in terms of feminist advancement that they have made. And also, such things should be brought into the mainstream of law. They should not just be treated as gender issues, and these things need to be brought into the mainstream of law, and things have to be done in order to bring women at par with men. So it was a good presentation, and I am really touched by Meghna's account of how she brought her own personal life in her novel Men Don't Cry. So I congratulate you on that. Thank you so much. But I just want to ask you one little thing. Why these fancy names for the new feminist theories? You already have transnationalism. Why this cosmofeminism? It bothers me that feminism is branching into so many names and terms, and it's kind of mind-boggling for everyone. Your comment on that?
Yes, ma'am. Even I feel so. Like feminism means equal rights for women. So maybe cosmo means world. So they are saying that when it comes to women, we divide ourselves in the name of different types of feminism. Like we divide in the name of country, religion, caste, and so maybe for that reason, cosmo feminism means, albeit all these divisions, we should gather together. We should realize the fact that we all belong to one community as a woman. So that's why probably cosmofeminism.
So initially,
It comes from cosmopolitanism, ma'am. Cosmo means world, politan means people of the world. So this term comes from that cosmopolitanism.
We started with feminism. We branched into
feminism. Yeah, different phases of feminism.
And then again, we are coming back to cosmofeminism, which talks about women of the world. So I think it's a kind of a coming back, I would say, where you are inclusive of all. Hannah, you're not just talking about a particular, feminist.
And probably to put an end to all different types of feminism. Let's stop all types of feminism and come to a common term that we are all the same and we should fight for a common cause.
Yeah. Very interesting. Thank you, Anjata. It's a nice presentation.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
So I guess we are already overshot of time. So without much ado, I thank each one of you, the presenters, all the 4 presenters, for your wonderful presentations. We started with the survival of the fittest in our civilization with reference to Professor B.B. Venkatesh's presentation, and Dr. Basundhara Roy's presentation on the poem by Nizam Ezekiel, Night of the Scorpion, bringing a very new angle to the poem of gender and performance. A cultural study approach. And Dr. Divya, she talked about the mistakes of my life in Chetan Bhagat's novel. And the last one we just heard, Cosmofeminism, it talked about the unstereotyped woman in Meghna Pant's novel, Boys Don't Cry. So it was a very enriching experience indeed. I thank each one of you for a patient hearing here. And that will be all from my side. It was wonderful sharing this platform with you, and I thank you all for sharing your research gains with all of us. Over to the organizers.